All right, y'all, let's talk about this one. Had to go back and rewatch it. The co-main event last night, Rose Namajunas taking on Miranda Maverick. All right, y'all, so Rose kind of defeats Miranda, in my opinion. I mean, after watching it last night and again this afternoon, I would say, yeah, Rose won the fight, but it definitely wasn't 30-27. And if you had it as a split decision for Miranda or Rose, yeah, I definitely could have seen that. But overall, it wasn't really like an action-packed fight. That's why I had to watch it again because I was going to call it last night, but the main card just kept going on later and later, man. I was going to get on at 11, but then next thing I knew it was like 11:45 and it still hadn't started. Then it was midnight. I was like, nah, I'm gonna just lay back and watch it because I was already laid back reading and everything. So I was like, nah, I don't even think it's gonna be that type of fight that's gonna wake me up either. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It really was like this crazy action-packed fight. I mean, it had its moments, but overall, it wasn't like that. So yeah, my thoughts on this one, my whole take. I think that, Rose, she is still a fighter that has a lot of technique and experience, and that's what gets her through these lower level flyweight fights, but she's still not dominating. She's not getting dominated, but she's also not dominated. I mean, she's 5 fights deep at flyweight. I think she's holding her own as far as like her skill set, but when it comes to like her strength, I still don't see her like owning these girls like she should, or even like, really finishing these girls. Like this really, like I said, wasn't even like a 30-27 on paper it was, but just like as far as showing, it wasn't like a dominant performance over somebody that, is um, a little lower down the rankings, right? That doesn't have that experience. So I thought that Rose, didn't really put forth that effort to say, hey, I deserve a title shot next, or maybe one more fight before a title shot. Miranda, I think she still is growing into her like style. Like it seems like she's still having trouble getting that striking going and really making her presence known. She kind of spent too much of the fight trying to strike with Rose from the outside. Like she landed some good leg kicks and body kicks that were timed well in the first round. And that's why I kind of gave Miranda the first round. I thought Miranda did enough to win the first round. I thought she outlanded Rose, but Rose was still like tagging her with some shots as Rose was coming forward. And, Rose was kind of forcing her into this striking match in the first round. So I thought, all right, Miranda, maybe she's going to switch it up and sit down on her shots a little bit more. And that's another thing. Like Miranda's really strong and durable. So I thought it would have been wise for her to maybe kind of march Rose down, meet her in the middle, tear that lead leg up, and then eventually, flurry her way in and, level change on Rose and get her down and get her where you want the fight to be. Because Aaron kind of did that similar approach where, Aaron would kind of flurry on Rose, and then she would kind of fluster her with these combinations, and then she would like back her into the cage and then force the fight to the ground. And, Miranda, that's what her game plan should have been in the first round instead of trying to, match Rose on the feet. Like I said, I thought she edged the first round out, but the second round, that's where, again, Miranda kind of made that mistake of striking and then jumping into Rose's zone where Rose could just, okay, instead of countering Rose, like, all right, I see this takedown, boom, she takes her down, right? Takes Miranda down in the first round and pretty much controls her for the majority of the round. Now, I know some people thought that Rose did enough to take it, but I mean, Miranda did enough to take it, but I don't think so. I know Rose had the rear naked choke attempt, and Miranda was able to break free and get top position and then get that triangle choke for maybe like the last 40 seconds. But overall, I thought Rose did take the round with that submission attempt. Now, again, that was another position. I was like, oh man, like Rose, she's getting out strength here. She kind of made that mistake of, just putting herself in that position against this grappler instead of bouncing back to her feet. I think Miranda, though, like I said, the reason she got taken down and controlled most of this round is because she was more in a position to strike in the second round, right? She wasn't in that position to, maul Rose and get her to the cage. And overall, I thought that both of them, as far as strength-wise, neither one of them really dominated the other. It kind of matched in Miranda's strength kind of matched up a little bit with more with Rose here instead of like, the other bigger fighters like Manon or Aaron. The last round, I thought Rose did win it. I know that shot did land, but it didn't really look like it was the knockdown, but it kind of looked like the way Miranda threw that punch. because I know now, it's just then I saw that Miranda torn her ACL. It was kind of the way she looped that left hand, and then she got caught with the shot. But it is not a knockdown's a knockdown, right? So they credit that as a knockdown. I can see that, but the way she threw that shot, it looked like it did some damage to her ACL. That's what kind of tore her ACL, the way she threw that left hand before going down. And then from there, Rose just kind of controlled Miranda again there because of the situation that she was in, and just got some top control time in. So, yeah, I had it like 29-28 for Rose. You could have seen it either way, though. Like I said, if somebody had it 29-28 for Miranda, maybe 1 and 2, okay. But either way, I didn't really see Rose go in there and, show us that, okay, she's next level again. She's ready to dominate. I still think that though flyweight might be the weight that's easy to make for her, as far as performances, I'm not really seeing like this filled out fighter. Like even like when Alexa Grasso climbed the ladder, I could see like Alexa stronger and growing, and her pop getting the attention of these fighters. Even when she submitted somebody like JoJo, and then she controlled somebody like Viviane Araújo on the feet, she was durable enough to go in there and control the fight for the most part. So, with Rose, I know she said after the fight that maybe one more fight like a Natalia Silva or Grasso, and then a title shot. I seen Natalia Silva beating Rose. The Grasso fight might be more doable. That might be more doable. I think they would match each other in boxing, but even then, I think that would kind of play in the Grasso's category more, where she could shine a little bit more. And when you compare it to these other fighters, like, well, who was her last fight? Natalia Silva, right? So that could be a more 50-50 fight there. Miranda, I still think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done as far as even like her stand-up. She's still not getting the attention of these girls that she's fighting. I think at least like Erin, who's a grappler, who is learning to strike more, she's getting her opponent's attention, whenever it comes to her head kicks or, throwing up those, those high kicks or jab straight down the middle, right hands. I think Erin's a little bit more solid when it comes to her hand game. I think she fights her way in where Miranda needs to fight her way in. Miranda kind of goes back on the back foot, throws a few shots out, goes back on the back foot, and she's never really got her feet planted. So those shots that she's throwing is not really getting the respect of her opponent, right, when it comes down to it. So, yeah, man, it was an average fight. I still think, like I said, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on both sides for Miranda to ever get in the top 10 or top 5 and stay. She's got to sit down on her shots and be a little bit more dominant with her body and her frame. Rose, I still think she could beat a lot of the B and C level fighters, but title shot, we'll see. So if they do the Grasso fight next, I won't be mad at that. But even in that one, I would say it's kind of 50-50. But let me know, guys, what y'all think. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.